Well, hello everyone and good morning. Of course, I left this up here and this is for later. So, hi. All right. My name is Audrey Codner. I'm the founder of ACG Math Tutoring. And every week on Wednesday at 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, which is right now, I go live for my Two Tutors Talking, where I actually introduce other parents to other tutors from all different backgrounds. So if we have something like math, English, social studies, science, language arts, organization, all that, they'll be coming here just to basically show what their services are, as well as for me to introduce some other things that I am noticing in our education, just so you have like a good idea of what is going on. So in today's episode, it's going to be moi spending a little time with you guys. And today's topic is basically dealing with special education. And I noticed, especially with a lot of my students last year, I was getting a great flux of special ed students coming in that needed some tutoring, but I always felt like there was a slight disconnect. It was like a slight disconnect that was going on when it came to my kids learning and what's going on with school. So really saw a major disconnect basically with my private or my parochial school kids. So when it came down to all that, I was just like, what's going on? So it actually prompted me to take a class, even though I've dealt with special ed students a great deal of my life, especially 18 years being in the classroom. But we all know that as teachers, we basically touch on certain things, but we don't touch on everything special ed. So they only gave us just enough for us to like turn things in, come to meetings, and just seeing what we can break down in order for them to improve on their learning. So, one of the things I definitely wanted to say that there was like special hints, especially with my parochial schools. So, I noticed that there was two different meanings with parochial. So, I know the one that when it's related to more of like a church parish, right? You know, your Catholic schools, a lot of people's time, your Lutheran schools, all that. So, instead of splitting them up into different religions, they just put them all together to say parochial schools. But then also parochial has another meaning, having limited or narrowed outlook or scope. And it just seems very interesting because of the topic that I'm sharing with you guys today, the difference between a 504 and an IEP. And I know a lot of people saying, well, I usually see that with public school, but nothing really for like private and parochial schools. And you're correct. So there's a lot of parents out there that don't know that with special ed, they're not going to see the same resources that maybe their friends who have children that struggle as well in the public school spectrum versus in the private sector. So I'm going to kind of address a little bit of some things, a little bit of 504, a little bit of IEP, and a splash of what to do if you are a parent of a child that has special needs that's in a private or a parochial school setting. So let's get started. So, of course, we always have to do if you're watching this live, hit hashtag live. If you're watching the replay, hit hashtag replay because it helps with the algorithm. So, no, I just like doing it. But if you are, go ahead and just, if you have any comments, please do not hesitate to put comments in. I'm not saying I'm 100% of an expert, but if I learn something and I know it can be beneficial for not only myself, but also for parents, I will share it. Okay. And stay to the end because I'm also going to share another resource just in case you really do need more assistance. So let's break down this whole 504 and IEP. Like, what is it? What are they? And how can it better assist my special ed child? Okay. So I learned a little bit something from Special Moms Advocate website, and I got this directly from their website. So this is to AT. So I'm just going to read it off for the people that are joining me on Instagram because you can't necessarily see my screen. So let me make this bad boy full screen. I love how I get reminders say, hey, don't forget to get ready for your live. I'm already doing it. It's already 5 minutes in. So, what we're dealing with the 504 and IEP is some people say is an individualized educational plan. It used to be called that, but now it's an instructional educational program. So when we're looking at an IEP, there is so much more detail to it than a 504. So, if we look at it from the law perspective, so the IEP is Individuals with Disabilities Education Act. It was basically amended back in 2004. So, with that governing, there was another part that is the 504, and that's a section 504 of the Rehabilitation Act of 1973. All right. So, to protect a lot of our special ed students, because there was a long time ago that people were not treating people with disabilities on the even keel. They were basically shunned away. That some people just had them in the attics of their homes. They weren't really let out into society. They were always kind of cast away. So instead of like casting them away, we're trying to educate them, trying to bring them into light to see, hey, just because you have a disability doesn't mean that you don't have an ability to do things, ability to learn, an ability to expand, and to basically have a life of their own. So we have all these basic law and proceedings. One is a civil rights law, and the other one is a federal law. So, if I may come down with the overseeing of it, the 504, which was the last one of it, is basically being overseen by that US Department of Education, but it's the Office of Civil Rights. All right. Whereas the IEP, again, is the United States Department of Education, but it's the Office of Special Education and Rehabilitation Services. So one is dealing with the civil right, whereas the other one is dealing more with the federal. So I might as well just go straight down. The biggest one that you hear a lot of is the IEP. Now, the IEP covers from ages of birth all the way up to like graduating in high school or up to 21. So if you have someone that has like a severe disability, like severe autism, and they need extra schooling, they can get that and they can get that protective services up to the age of 21. Once they hit 21, that's it. So this is why there's always like some kind of thing that's happening. After they deal with that, if you have a 504, that basically covers your entire life. Now, I'm going to get into full detail. Why wouldn't someone just stick with a 504 instead of an IEP? So, if we're looking at the eligibility, let me see if I get like a quick little comment. Okay, that was just me. Um, so, when we're looking at like the eligibility, when you have an IEP, there's like some kind of qualifying test. So if you basically hit one of 13 categories, it could be a learning disability, sight, hearing, maybe a development disruption, something of that phase. You can get an IEP based off of the school and the district to see if you definitely qualify. And this is when you actually have to get tested for it. All right. So if it's affecting your child's ability to do any kind of learning or access or understanding the curriculum, this will kind of help with that development or to basically helping out. Now, the 504, your child must have a disability, and that disability has to affect your ability to learn. So, for instance, for me, not me personally, but maybe, for anyone that is a member of my, say, when I was in the classroom in my math class, you would have some kids that are like, okay, they can do the work close to that grade level. They can understand the process, but for some reason, multiplication is just not their thing. So they can get access to a calculator to help assist them with the curriculum. So we don't have to like design a whole program. Oh, you're missing this, you're developing this. It was just like, okay, they just need something to help them to move on to the next process. IEPs is going to be more detailed. So we're looking at where exactly is that developmental stage? Where was that break? Where can we actually do one resources, also have some kind of accommodations to kind of help that child to kind of be on the same even peel as everyone else. So there's more detail with the IEP. Hex is a program versus their 504, which is more of a support. So when you need a written plan, the IEP, you definitely have to have a written plan, and that is required. Whereas a 504, you don't have to have a written plan. Hey, big dog. So the next part, we have our parent involvement. Now, in the development of the IEP, you definitely need to be, as a parent, you are involved in every step of the way. You are making sure that this sounds right for your child. And if you feel like there's some kind of discrepancies, you need more additional information, then you reach out and you go get that additional information. You have a say in your child's development. So that's especially with the IEP. Now, you can have some permission. I was saying that this is my favorite math teacher. Oh, thanks, King. I know. Oh, now you're using the budgeting? See? I told you it was gonna happen. I told you. So so if anything, like, you don't like, parents don't have to have too much other than just the permission for the evaluation, but once that is created, you don't really have to have parent participation each and every day, right? So when it comes to like a customized curriculum, that means like when the teachers have their basic curriculum, like I was doing many years ago, when we had our basic curriculum, when you have an IEP, there is going to be some things that's going to be modified basically for the need of that student. Whereas a 504, the curriculum doesn't need to be modified. You just need to have some kind of resources to help the student to get up to speed when it comes to the designation of the curriculum. So IEP kind of gets more in detail, especially when it comes to the annual review. Like every year, there is a review. How is that child doing? You're getting samples from the teachers. You're looking at tests. So you're not just looking at grades, you're actually getting information from their teachers, even though they focus mostly on English and math, because those are mostly the tested areas. But when it comes down to the whole structure of it, they're getting feedback from their teachers. They're getting samples of work. They're constantly having meetings. Like for me as a math teacher, I felt like I was always in meetings, constantly in meetings, constantly getting feedbacks and figuring out where they're going to go to next. But for a 504, you really are not required to have an annual review. If you want, because most teachers probably don't, they just want to say, all right, how are you doing in the class? Okay, what adjustments do we need to make? And they do that more of a personals instead of having a huge meeting with, the IEP chair and the 50, not the 504 chair, but the IEP chair, the coordinator, the parents, the teachers. It's just like a one big meeting. But the goals. Now, IEPs, they have their goals written out. So it could be like, we want this child to be able to solve one step equations at an 80% rate. Or we want this child to be able to add, subtract, multiply, divide fractions of improper fractions with proper fractions, so forth, at an 80 to 90% rate. We want some behavioral issues to be decreased at a 90% rate. There's always these mini goals when it comes to the IEPs. Whereas the 504, there really isn't any goals. We just want them to do well in their classes, but you're just giving that additional support and you're putting that in writing just so we have that additional support. And we just kind of do some kind of progress monitoring sometimes, but that's usually happening in the classroom. It's not like a special thing in itself. So now, when it comes to the accommodations, this is when it gets hairy. So there are some teachers that are like, look, You should be just like everybody else. This is it." And you're like, "No, no, baby." If you have an IEP, so the students may be given accommodations to make it a little more easier. So an accommodation will be if you give the whole class a list of like say 12 problems to do, the teacher could say, "Okay, I really want you to do 6 or I want you to do 7." And you can pick these type of groups. I just want you to do 7. You pick what it is. Or it could be like when everyone's getting this long assessment, you can do some modifications to that assessment just so that they're able to A, hit on all the content, but at the same time, they're giving that support that yes, you are going to be almost like trying to even it out for everyone else. Okay. Whereas the 504, students may be given the accommodations to even the playing fields. Like I said, they can have a calculator or a multiplication chart, or they can have read to text that's being offered for their assessments. Sometimes people just more auditory learners than visual learners. I had one student that she couldn't read on white paper. Yeah, that was a fun year. It had to be on a dark blue paper. So anytime I had to print something out, it had to be on dark paper so she can read it. It was a fun year. Now, other things that we have for our services. So if your child has an IEP, so the student is eligible, so any kind of additional services like a speech path or maybe occupational therapist. So there's like an additional thing, maybe helping out with social skills, helping out with anxiety. So you have another person to actually do all those things. So then the student, if you have a 504, you're not eligible for those extra services. Okay. So we're giving you some of the resources, but not so much deep down with those extra services. But now, this is when it gets funky. When that child is about to graduate, okay? When that child's about to graduate from high school, I notice a lot of schools are removing the child from their IEP and pushing them into a 504. So if you remember, the 504 can cover throughout their lifetime, okay? It's just a support system. Because if you go to college, colleges are not taking handle into IEPs. They may take it into account, but they're not taking that. So if you give them 504s, they can give you that support. They can give you access to tutors. They can give you access to maybe you can get copies from your professors of their notes. So you can take it from that perspective. But when it comes down to really with the college, that's why a lot of people are moving them from their IEP into that 504 realm. So then they can get that additional support when they're going into a college or um, a labor type school. So any other resources that they're getting, they can get it with their 504. So they can get their accommodations. So if you ever wonder why, like it seemed like a lot of people are taking them out from the IEP and they're like, they still need resources. They're putting them into like a 504. So they're still getting some kind of resource and some kind of support as they continue on. Now, with the protocols, let's try it again. Protocols, safety guards. So we have the idea. So that individual, I told for a disability equip. I can't even speak. Individual disability educational. There we go. So it doesn't protect when they're in college, as I said before, but it's a clear set of safeguards. Okay, I'm getting all these messages now. It's a clear set of safeguards that must be followed to ensure the rights of the parent and the child. So you want to make sure that your child is getting the assistance that they need. They're getting the time, they're getting the resources, they're having their goals met. And if their goals aren't met, what do we need to do? So it's really like a support. And I know there's a lot of parents, there's a lot of people that says there is a stigma when it comes to special education. Like, oh, I'm special ed. That means I'm forever dumb, as they like to say it. But no. you're getting the resources that you need. You're getting that push that you need. So some people need more support. Think of me. If I'm trying to run this business as the way I am, I'm going to need some support. I'm going to need someone that knows how to, let's say, social media, that knows how to do social media, because after a while, I don't want to keep want to have to throw my computer out the window every time I'm editing a video. Like the last time I did a video, it disappeared on me twice. But we're going to talk about that later. But for the most part, it's kind of like it gives you that safety net. It gives you that additional support. Parents, teachers, everyone that they know what they need to do to help your child to be able to proceed and do well. Whereas a 504, it really doesn't have any safety guards. Okay. So it's just basically, hey, what's your child need? You need the support. We got you. How's it going? I notice your grades are going up. How are you feeling? Do we need to continue on with this? You still want to continue on? Even with parents that are thinking about changing from the IEP to the 504 because they're noticing the grades are going up, they're noticing the kids not as anxious anymore, and sometimes like, well, I still kind of want to have something, then the 504 will be your best bet. So then when it comes to the recourse, obviously there's so much like mediation and due process that goes with the IEP. Now, with the 504s, the parent does have a right to file a complaint to the Civil Rights Department if you feel that something is a little off. You do have that. But if you want to go deep, deep into the jungle, that's going to be happening mostly with the IEP part. So let me turn this banner off. So I was just kind of looking a little bit more into, let me get into that, the whole idea. So a lot of people, this is when it starts getting a little off. Now, the reason why I say this is because a lot of people, especially of a parent of a child that has special needs that's in a private and parochial school, they'll talk to their friends and they'll say, oh, well, I'm going through this and I don't think my child is getting a lot of services, because they're hearing their friends saying, well, yeah, we just get her an aide in our classroom to help kind of guide her, or we will do some additional services and the teachers are supposed to do X, Y, and Z. And you're sitting there saying, well, I'm not getting that. There's a reason. Okay. So first we have to look at FLAP. No, not FLAP. Whoa, about to lose my stuff. So the FAPE. Okay. So that stands for free, appropriate public education. All right. So we have a lot of people like they must be side to side with peers if they are having any kind of discourse whatsoever, like learning wise. This is for free, appropriate public education. And I know a lot of people will say, well, I know my school takes public funding. And I'm like, true. But this is what they're doing. They're taking public funding and they have these programs to better support their special ed population. So, like if they have like a tutoring program or they have a mediation program, meanwhile, like during the school day, they can come to a center to get additional assistance, break concepts down. That's what that public funding is for. Anything additional that, like getting IEPs and having constant meetings, like they still meet, but they don't have to do all those things, because the idea and the FRAP is not for private schools and parochial schools. It's basically for public schools. And I think a lot of parents think, because they've never really had to associate so much with special education, because no one's like sitting here talking about, yeah, go FRAP. Like no one's doing that, right? So they just don't know what exactly that needs to be done. So they have these things called like a child find. So they have like every school generally has like a brochure or maybe on their website of some of the things to kind of look for. Do you notice that your child is doing this, doing that, doing that? Do you answer yes to one of these 13 things? If so, you can probably go and get some kind of testing done. If you're in a private school or a parochial school, and you can either go to your doctor to get tested, or you can go to, I think it's one of their sectioned or their district public school to see if you can get tested as well. I do have a YouTube channel link towards the end, which I'll share with you guys. If you want to copy and paste, I will try to put it into the comments on the replay. Hashtag replay. Um, so if you want to check that out to get further information on that, that'll be perfect for you guys. So, like I was saying, you want to get that, go to the child find, look at it, see what applies to you. Um, and then you need to get your child evaluated. Again, I said doctors, and sometimes you get a letter of evaluation and maybe a local public school as well. But then while you're doing all this, let's look at some additional services. So if your child qualifies for special ed, you have a choice. You can either keep them in the private setting or the parochial setting because you like the school, but just remember, you're not going to get as much resources as you can. So you might have to figure out, say, for instance, there's a child struggling with math. You know that the child can do the math, but it takes them longer to process. So see if you can get extra time with assessments, extra time with assignments, and what would be considered extra time for you. Another thing would be like to have like a small index card with all the formulas on there that is going to be on that particular assessment, because sometimes the kids, I'm telling you, like they'll learn it, they're doing awesome, and then the weekend happens, and then they're like, "What is math?" like all over again. So if you're giving a test, probably not give a test on a Monday. They need that extra day. I don't know why all of a sudden people are giving tests on Mondays. That was like a taboo thing when I was teaching back in the day. But when it comes to those additional services, so yes, they are paid, as I said, by public funding, and as is mentioned in this one, but because the funding is limited, kids may get fewer free services if they go to private schools than if they switch to a public school. So you're going to get more of the, or you should get more of the resources and more of the things that your child needs in a public setting than you would in a private setting. So then we have that service plan. We can always create an individual service plan for any student. So if you're in a private setting, you're sitting down, you're noticing, you're getting some feedback from your teachers, you're breaking all these things down. Okay, so we can give your child extra time. That's not a problem. If anything, we'll give her a quiet place for her to take her test because she get easily distracted. So what we'll do is we'll have the teacher send the test down to the center, and we're going to put her in one of our quiet rooms for her to sit down and test. There you go. Or, okay, so we make sure that she has the proper information on her index card. And we can also take a look at how to make her processing or organization a lot better. So those are like conversations that you can have during those meetings before the start of school. All right. So see if you can get in touch with those if you haven't done so already. I think that would be the best thing for you to do. Most of the parochial schools do a very good job of actually reaching out to their incoming freshmen and returning players or people, sticking basketball for a second, returning people um, when the school year is about to start. So I think around this time, a lot of people are having their private meetings, or there's a letter that's sent, and you just have to get in touch with them and take it from there. All right. So don't assume that all teachers will know this right off the top of their heads. Because as you can tell, I had to do some research. Like I knew public school, but I didn't know private and parochial school because I haven't taught in there, and I haven't been in a Catholic school many moons ago. So when it comes to the teacher certification, it's not like written in stone that everyone knows what goes on in special ed. Okay. So sometimes it's just a matter of just reaching out and say, hey, I knows you're my child's math teacher. I just want to introduce myself, tell you a little bit about my child, and see if we can set up some kind of meeting. And please make sure that you look at my child's IEP or 504 or individual plan just so we can better support her throughout the year. Something like that will be very useful. All right. So, because we can't assume, oh, they're a teacher, they should know. No, we don't know. Sometimes we're left in the dark for a lot of things. And then the last part that I want to talk about is the accommodations. So, any kind of extra time, as I said, on a test, maybe some kind of assisted technology, um, tutoring at school. Shameless plug. I know that was terrible. Um, maybe even some kind of something during the day. As I said, some schools have like their own little center. Sometimes they have their own special ed coordinators to kind of help. I think they call it assisted instructive leaders. I think that's what they're called now, instead of special ed, because we don't like to put a, hey, your child has special needs. No one wants to do that. But you also have your private tutoring. So this is generally what I do. All last year, I swear I've been to so many IEP meetings and tutors don't do that. But because I used to be a teacher and I know what the teacher is trying to do and I have a good idea what the kid's trying to do, so I kind of work in there and try to translate. I say, all right, I think she can do this because I've seen her do this and I've seen her do this, but she just needs a reminder about this. Can she have this reminder for her assessments? Once we start doing those reminders, her grade went up. Hmm, interesting. And I know a lot of people will think, oh, it's cheating, just like they're thinking Chat GPT is cheating. No, Chat GPT is another resource because if you think about it, they have to understand what to put in to the system in order for the AI to generate what's coming out. And they have to read through the AI result to see if that is appropriate for what they're trying to do. It's a resource, guys. Don't be afraid of the technology. Just because it's not our norm, it's going to be their norm from now on. Okay. They're going to use it anyway. They're going to sneak behind you, just like how they used to do for math problems when they used to do photo math. And all of a sudden, they're taking a picture of their work. And the next thing you know, you're getting absolute values. And we haven't even started absolute values yet in their answers. Let's fix that. All right. So that's what they lovely do. So that's just generally what I wanted to present. There is a difference between an IEP and a 504. IEP is more deep down, how we're trying to break concepts down. If you got one of these 13 different listed disabilities, how can we help them? How can we get them at grade level? How can we build them up, not only academically, but also like socially? And we just really wanted to have that support plan or program to help them throughout. And then you, as a parent, you have a say in the matter. So, yes, I really think that my child can do this. Yes, my child can do that. I don't think that's appropriate because I haven't seen X, Y, and Z. You have a say. 504, they're asking for permission. Then you're seeing, like, yeah, my child needs a calculator. Or, yeah, I wish my child would have like bigger print because, the site. Or, yes, more of assisted technology. So that'll be like the best thing that you can do. Don't worry about the stigma. Everyone always tries to go after the stigma, always doing that. But you just stay true to yourself. So here's one resource, as I promised. I have my friend Kathy Cosano, who is the happy teacher. It has to put the in front of it. She deals with all different types of learning disabilities. She's amazing. She has a group of people that will actually help you break down all these concepts. If you give you better support, if you need a tutor, if you need an advocate, she has it all wrapped up. So that's one resource that I know personally because I know Kathy. She's amazing. She was actually on one of our Two Tutors Talking not too long ago. So if you want to find out more from that, you can go to my YouTube channel, which is Audrey Codner or ACG Math Tutoring. And you could just look under the playlist of Two Tutors Talking, Or you can look at the podcast of Two Tutors Talking, which is also on YouTube. And as promised, here is that YouTube video that will help you, especially if you're a private school parent, to learn a little bit more about how are they really supporting your student or your child while they're in the classroom. So this one cleared it up a little bit. It's literally 2 minutes. It's not a long video. But if you do ever need any assistance and you just want to say, hey, Audrey, how can I reach out to you? Right here. You can go to Solo to ACG Math Tutoring, or you can go to acgmathtutoring.com, which is my website. Or if you're watching on Facebook or Instagram, you can go to my bio, and there's a link in there that will take you to the Solo 2, which you can get my email, you can get my social media feeds, you can get my videos, you can even text me. Don't text me any foolishness, okay? Because I will block you. So, again, this was a nice long video. Hopefully, you guys were able to get enough from it. If it was a little too confusing and you need some clarification, please do not hesitate whatsoever to reach out and DM me. And I hope you guys have an awesome day and keep learning. So, if anything, I keep forgetting to say this. If you are a tutor and you want to be on Two Tutors Talking, definitely reach out to me. People need to know what you do. And the second thing is starting on Monday, I will be doing a lead generation challenge for tutors that want to find their ideal clients. So I will teach you all the methods that I did to get fully booked in the last 2 years, which as I speak, I have two more people that I will be fully booked for this year. The insanity continues. So if you are interested in it, I will share the link with you guys momentarily. But go ahead and keep watching the posts and everything will go through. All right, parents and all right, tutors, take care and keep being awesome. Bye now.